When I first met Ethan's mother, I thought I had won the lottery, not just in love, but in family. His mom, Eleanor, greeted me with a warm hug and sparkling eyes the very first time I visited their home. She made me tea, complimented my dress, and called me darling in the sweetest voice. Her house smelled like cinnamon and lavender, and every room seemed to say, "You're safe here." After years of cold interactions in high society, especially after losing my parents and inheriting their fortune at 23, Eleanor's warmth felt like a gift. She wasn't like the people I was used to. She wasn't interested in money or appearances, or so I thought. Ethan and I met at university. He was the opposite of the men I grew up around, humble, funny, fiercely loyal. He never cared about my wealth. If anything, he often joked that he forgot I even had it. "I fell in love with your brain," he said once, "and your terrible sense of direction. We were inseparable." And when he proposed, I didn't hesitate. Eleanor was overjoyed. She threw her arms around me and whispered, "I always wanted a daughter, and now I finally have one." The months that followed were a whirlwind of wedding planning and family bonding. Eleanor invited me for tea every Saturday. She asked about my childhood, my favorite memories, my parents. She said she admired how grounded I was, despite having money. It felt real, genuine, almost healing. She even started calling me my sweet girl. But every so often, there were moments that didn't quite feel right, like the time I offered to pay for the rehearsal dinner, and she replied, "Oh no, darling, that's for us to handle. You'll need your savings for more important things later." Or when she asked, half-jokingly, what would happen to my estate if something ever happened to me. I laughed it off, but something inside me paused. My lawyer, Mrs. Langford, was the one who first voiced what I didn't want to admit. "She's unusually interested in your assets," she said during a routine estate review. "You sure you want to merge everything financially after the wedding?" I defended Eleanor, of course. "She's just protective. Ethan and I trust each other." Mrs. Langford adjusted her glasses and said flatly, "Trust is good, but protection is smarter." And then came the incident with the prenup. I hadn't even thought about one. My parents had always raised me to see love as something beyond money. But Mrs. Langford insisted on it, and Ethan didn't object. In fact, he signed without hesitation. But Eleanor? She was different. When she found out, her tone changed. "A prenup? Between you two? But that's not love, darling. That's suspicion. What are you trying to say about my son?" I tried to explain it wasn't personal, that it was standard practice, given my estate. But her eyes went cold. She changed the subject, but the energy in the room never warmed again. After that, she started pulling away. Not entirely, but subtly. She canceled tea visits. She stopped asking about the wedding. Then, little by little, she started whispering doubts into Ethan's ear. I didn't realize it at first, but one night, Ethan came home tense. "Mom says you've been distant lately, that the prenup made her feel unwelcome." I blinked. "She told you that?" He nodded. "She's worried you don't trust the family." It was subtle, but it was the first crack. Still, I pushed forward. I wanted this marriage. I loved Ethan. I believed in the family we were building. And Eleanor? I wanted to believe in her too. Until one evening, I overheard something that shattered everything. I had arrived early to the family's summer home to surprise Ethan and Eleanor. The housekeeper let me in. As I walked past the study, I heard Eleanor's voice, low and sharp. "Once the marriage is done, we'll work on getting that estate tied down properly. It's all in her name for now, but with time, she'll trust us completely." There was a pause. A man's voice, Ethan's uncle maybe, responded, "And if she doesn't, then we remind her what family loyalty looks like." I stood frozen in the hallway. Everything, the warmth, the tea, the stories about her daughterless heart, collapsed around me like a staged play with a sudden blackout. She hadn't been welcoming me. She'd been studying me, smiling with teeth, embracing with knives. I walked out of that house quietly, my chest hollow, my heart louder than ever. It was the beginning of the unraveling, because I finally understood she didn't want a daughter, she wanted my inheritance, and I was done pretending not to see it. I didn't cancel the wedding, not because I still trusted her. I didn't. Not because I was afraid. I wasn't. I didn't cancel it because I needed to see how far she would go, because sometimes the only way to expose a lie is to let it play out. So I smiled. I played the perfect bride-to-be, and I watched. Eleanor returned to her sweet, syrupy self almost instantly. Suddenly we were closer than ever. She called me every morning, sent me inspirational quotes, dropped off herbal teas she claimed helped with stress. But her eyes, they were different now. Too wide, too alert, like she was waiting for me to trip. And Ethan? He was glowing. He thought the tension had passed. He thought everything was perfect. It broke my heart to keep secrets from him. But I wasn't doing it out of malice. I was doing it to protect him from a truth he wasn't ready to face. 2 weeks before the wedding, Eleanor invited me to her house, just us girls. A spa day. Manicures, facials, wine, laughter. It was all so carefully constructed. But I was ready. I wore a wire under my cardigan. Mrs. Langford had helped me set it up. I knew I couldn't go to the police yet. I needed proof, and I was about to get it. We were in the sunroom, sipping chilled rosé, when Eleanor leaned in, placing her hand gently over mine. "I know this marriage will be wonderful," she said softly. "And I know your heart is good. But you're young. You've had a lot to manage, haven't you?" I nodded. "You've done well, holding on to your parents' legacy. But marriage means sharing everything. Ethan's proud, you know. He wouldn't ask for it, but I will." My heart pounded. "Ask for what?" She smiled sweetly. "Control. Protection. Just a small adjustment in the documents. A family trust. Something that gives us some say in case, God forbid, you're ever unwell or something happens. You know how unpredictable life can be." There it was, wrapped in concern, coated in fake maternal love, a velvet dagger. I blinked. "You mean, take some of the inheritance out of my name?" She chuckled. "Oh, darling, no. Nothing so harsh, just tie it in with the family. That way, everyone's safe, including you. And if I say no?" She didn't flinch. "You won't. Why not?" She took a long sip of wine, then said, with a smile that never reached her eyes, "Because you're smart. And smart girls don't make enemies of people who protect them." The conversation ended shortly after. I left with my pulse pounding and the recording safe in my bag. I had my proof, and I had my plan. But the game wasn't over yet, because Eleanor still thought she was in control. The wedding day arrived like a dream painted in gold. White roses, candlelight, a small ceremony at the lakeside estate. Photographers captured every smile, every tear, every lie. Eleanor stood beside me as I got dressed. "You look stunning," she whispered. "Just like a daughter to me." I smiled. "And you, like a mother." She beamed. She had no idea. The ceremony went smoothly. The vows were exchanged. Ethan kissed me like he meant forever. And I did love him. But the reception, that's when everything changed. After the first dance, I took the microphone. "Thank you all for being here today. There's nothing more powerful than love. But there's also nothing more dangerous than betrayal." The room fell silent. I looked at Eleanor, who froze mid-sip. "Before this day ends, I want to share a gift. Not for myself, but for truth." I pressed play on a small speaker connected to my phone, and the room filled with Eleanor's voice. "Control, protection, just a small adjustment. Smart girls don't make enemies of people who protect them." Gasps, whispers. Ethan turned pale. Eleanor stood up, trying to speak, but I raised my hand. "You pretended to love me, but I don't need a mother who only sees dollar signs." I turned to Ethan. "I married you because I love you, but I won't live in a lie, and I won't be manipulated by anyone." Some guests left early. Some stayed, unsure of what to say. But I didn't cry, because that day wasn't about loss. It was about liberation. The morning after the wedding, the house was quiet, too quiet. Ethan hadn't said much since the reception. He spent the night staring at the wall, his drink untouched, the replay of the audio playing silently behind his eyes. I didn't push him. I didn't say, "I told you so." I didn't need to. Some truths, once spoken, don't need to be repeated. But I knew it was only a matter of time before Eleanor tried to rewrite the story. And I was right. By noon, She had already texted Ethan 7 times. By evening, she called me. I let it go to voicemail. Then she showed up at our door, wearing pearls, carrying banana bread, smiling like the night before had never happened. Ethan opened the door, and I watched his entire body tense. "Sweetheart," Eleanor said, "I think we need to talk, privately." Ethan looked back at me. I gave him a nod. Let her speak. Let the rope grow longer. They sat in the kitchen while I stayed within earshot. Her voice was soft, shaking, the perfect combination of victimhood and maternal guilt. "I don't know how that recording was taken out of context, Ethan. But your wife, she's trying to turn you against your own mother." "Mom, I heard you," he said quietly. "That wasn't taken out of context. That was you." A pause. "You know I would never hurt you." "But you would hurt her?" Eleanor's voice dropped. "Everything I did was for you." That was the moment I stepped in. "If that were true," I said, walking in, "you wouldn't have tried to control me through manipulation." Eleanor stood up, her face hardening for the first time. "Don't twist my love into something dirty." I looked her in the eyes. It was never love. It was control wrapped in compliments. "You came into this family with more money than sense," she snapped. "You don't understand what it's like to protect what's yours." "Oh, but I do," I said calmly. "And that's exactly why I protected myself. From you." The tension between us thickened. Ethan watched in silence, his eyes darting between the woman who raised him and the woman who refused to be broken. Finally, Eleanor turned to him. "Are you going to let her speak to me like this?" And then, the question that would define everything. "Do you believe me, Ethan?" He looked at her, then at me, and for the first time, his answer wasn't silence. "I believe her, because she protected me, even from you." Eleanor blinked, once, twice, then she broke. She exploded into accusations. I had manipulated Ethan. I was tearing the family apart. I was jealous of her relationship with her son. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "You don't know what I'm capable of." I stepped forward, chin raised. "No, Eleanor, you don't know what I'm capable of. You thought you could smile your way into my trust, but I grew up in a world of fake smiles, and I learned early on, never underestimate a quiet woman with everything to lose." She left, stormed out, heels echoing across the floor like a warning shot. But it was over, or so I thought. The next week, we received a letter from Eleanor's attorney. She was contesting the prenuptial agreement, claiming Ethan was pressured into signing it, claiming she was owed damages for the emotional distress caused by my public smear campaign. It would have been laughable if it weren't so twisted. But instead of anger, I felt something else. Resolve. I met with Mrs. Langford the next morning. "We're not going to fight fire with fire," I said. "No? We're going to fight it with the one thing she can't use, the truth." We filed a public statement, backed with documents, signed audio consent, and a detailed timeline of every financial conversation Eleanor had tried to initiate. And then, we did something bold. We donated $100,000 of my wedding gift fund, money Eleanor had assumed would be brought into the family, to a nonprofit that protects women from financial abuse and coercion. Eleanor had tried to steal my name to strengthen hers, but I used her greed to strengthen others. The press found out, of course. "Millionaire bride donates to anti-abuse fund after family scandal," read one headline. Eleanor hated the attention. She sent one final text to Ethan. "You've humiliated me." He replied with just one sentence. "You did that to yourself." That was the last we heard from her. She didn't come to our first anniversary dinner, didn't send a card when Ethan got promoted, didn't even acknowledge the birth of our daughter. But you know what? We were okay with that, because the family I built with Ethan was honest, earned, and free of manipulation. And that was worth more than any inheritance. I used to think villains were born cruel, that they woke up one day and chose manipulation like a dress from a closet. But Eleanor taught me something else. Sometimes people become villains because they're afraid of being powerless again, and they'll destroy anyone who threatens that illusion of control. After the dust had settled, Ethan and I were rebuilding, quietly, peacefully. But one afternoon, a letter arrived. No return address. Inside was a photograph, old, creased, black and white. A woman holding a newborn. Behind her, a rundown hospital room. On the back, written in faded ink. For Eleanor, may this child bring you the life we couldn't. There was also a note, typed, cold. You think you know her? You don't. Ask her about Malcolm Price. I showed it to Ethan. He froze. Malcolm Price? That's my grandfather. But he died before I was born. We didn't know what to make of it until we started digging. With the help of a private investigator and more than a few archived court records, we discovered Eleanor's life before she married Ethan's father. She'd once been engaged to a man named Malcolm Price, a wealthy heir, charming, dangerous. They were young and reckless. She got pregnant at 19. But when his family found out, everything changed. Malcolm disappeared overseas. His parents paid off the hospital bills. And Eleanor? She was left with nothing but shame. And a baby girl who didn't survive the winter. No one ever spoke of it again. Until now. Ethan sat quietly for a long time after we read through the files. She always hated talking about the past, he said. Now we know why. I nodded. But that doesn't excuse what she did to us. No, it doesn't, he agreed. But it explains why she clings to control. She lost everything once and swore she never would again. It was a chilling thought, that her cruelty was born from pain, that maybe, once, Eleanor had been a version of me, hopeful, trusting, in love. But somewhere along the way, grief hardened into greed, and instead of healing, she built a kingdom of control, brick by brick, smile by smile. The most haunting part? There were letters, dozens of them, in a storage unit she had once rented under a fake name, all addressed to the child who never came, all signed, from the mother no one wanted to be one. It was heartbreak in paper form, but even that didn't change what she'd done. Sometimes, pain explains a person, but it doesn't excuse them. I didn't hate Eleanor, but I would never trust her again. Ethan wanted to reach out, just once. He wrote a letter. He said, I forgive you, but I won't let you hurt us again. I hope you find peace. He never got a reply. And maybe that was her final form of control. Silence. Months later, the investigator called again. Eleanor had quietly moved out of the city, sold her home, closed all accounts, no trace, no message, gone. It was the ending she chose, not dramatic, not explosive, just absence. I sometimes wonder if she watches from afar, if she checks the news when our names appear, if she sees her granddaughter's photos online. Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. But what matters is this. She no longer holds the pen in our story. We do. It was 6 months after our daughter was born. Her name was Lila. She had my eyes and Ethan's quiet strength. Even as a newborn, she held your gaze like she knew who she was. Her laughter had become the soundtrack of our days, and for the first time in years, I felt like we were truly free. Then the letter arrived. No stamp, no address, just dropped at our door. Ethan brought it in, puzzled. He opened it, read 2 lines, and sat down, pale. It's from my sister, he said. I froze. You don't have a sister. Apparently, I do. The letter was simple. No accusations, no bitterness, just the truth, or what she claimed was the truth. My name is Camilla. I was born in 1983. Eleanor gave me up for adoption before she met your father. I've spent my life wondering why I was never enough. I only found her name through court records and DNA testing. I don't want money. I don't want drama. I just want to know if I have a brother. There was a phone number. Ethan said nothing for a long time. Then, I need to call her. I supported him, even though a part of me braced for another twist in the story we thought was finished. But when he called, the voice on the other end wasn't calculating. It wasn't bitter. It was quiet, careful, hopeful. They talked for 3 hours. Then she asked if she could meet. We met Camilla at a small cafe by the lake. She looked nothing like Eleanor. Soft curls, gentle smile, wore no makeup. There was something in her presence that felt untouched by bitterness. She brought photos, letters, old records, and the birth certificate. She never named me, Camilla said, almost as a whisper. But the nurse remembered. She said Eleanor cried the whole time, said she was just a girl, and that no one gave her a choice. Camilla had built her own life. She was a teacher, married, no kids. She had tried years ago to reach Eleanor, but the letters were returned unopened. She had never even known about Ethan until the DNA service flagged a distant cousin, and the trail led to us. "I don't want anything from her," she said, "but I would love to know you." Ethan nodded. "You do. You're looking at him." In that moment, I saw something shift in him. All the grief he never showed, the loss of a mother who had always loved conditionally. Camilla offered something Eleanor never could, a bond without expectation, a sister without games. Over the next few weeks, she became part of our life. She visited Lila, shared stories about the family she grew up with. She told us about the day she found Eleanor's name in the archives. "I sat there in silence for 10 minutes, she said, because even though I didn't know her, I had always felt her, the absence of her. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't demand understanding, and maybe that's why we trusted her. She didn't carry Eleanor's voice. She carried her own. But the biggest surprise came in the form of an old journal Camilla found in a thrift shop, one that had Eleanor's handwriting in the margins. It wasn't a diary, just a second-hand novel with furious notes scribbled between the lines. And on the last page, beneath the final sentence, Eleanor had written, "If I could do it again, I'd choose the truth over control, but I don't know how to love without owning." That was the closest thing to an apology we would ever get. I didn't cry. I just sat with the weight of it and realized some people spend their whole lives running from vulnerability, from softness, from surrender, and in doing so, they lose the one thing they thought they were protecting: love. Eleanor left behind many things, but perhaps the most surprising legacy was the connection between the children she failed to keep and the family they chose to build anyway, together. Lila turned 5 last spring. She wore a sunflower dress, twirled until she got dizzy, and demanded chocolate cake for breakfast, which we absolutely gave her. We invited Camilla and her wife, our friends, and a few neighbors. Nothing extravagant, just laughter, bubbles, and the kind of joy no money can buy. At one point, someone asked Lila, "Who's that?" pointing to Camilla. Lila grinned and said, "That's my Auntie Cam. She reads me stories about brave girls." Camilla winked and said, "Because you are one." And I realized in that moment, we did it. We ended it. Eleanor once believed she could shape the future through control, that power came from manipulation, and love was a currency you earned through obedience. But in the end, her granddaughter would never know that kind of love. She would know something stronger: freedom. We never lied to Lila about Eleanor. As she got older, she asked, "Why don't we see Daddy's mommy?" Ethan took a breath and said, "Because sometimes people forget how to love without hurting, and we want you to grow up knowing only love that heals." We didn't need to paint Eleanor as a villain. We didn't need to pretend. Truth, told gently, is stronger than fiction. There were times I worried the wounds would find their way back to us. That legacy, like a ghost, might haunt even the happiest home. But love, real love, is louder. We built our home around honesty. Not perfection, not performance, not power, just honesty. When Lila started school, she wrote a story for her first journal assignment. The title, "The Girl Who Didn't Have to Be Small." It was about a princess who didn't live in a castle, but in a garden, where everyone was allowed to grow in their own way. I cried when I read it, because she didn't know that she was writing my story. And maybe, even Eleanor's too, the version that never got to bloom. Camilla visits often. She brings books and flowers and listens more than she speaks. She tells Lila stories about second chances and sisters who find each other through lost letters. And sometimes I wonder, if Eleanor had met Camilla as a grown woman, would she have softened? Would she have apologized? Would she have seen that love doesn't have to control to be safe? I don't know, and I've made peace with never knowing. One day, Ethan sat beside me on the porch, Lila playing in the yard. He looked at me, a faint smile on his face, and said, "Do you think my mom ever realized what she lost?" I thought about it, about all the years Eleanor spent trying to control what couldn't be controlled, trying to preserve a legacy that was already crumbling, trying to own what was never hers to claim. "Maybe," I said, but by the time she saw it, we were already free. The final letter came on the 7th anniversary of our wedding. Camilla found it in the bottom of a box from her last move. It was sealed, never sent, Eleanor's handwriting was unmistakable. Inside, "You were right. I didn't want a daughter. I wanted someone who would never leave me, not like the others did. But I pushed you away because I couldn't control you. And I couldn't control you because you knew who you were. And maybe that's what scared me most. No apology, but an admission. And sometimes, that's all we get." I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer, not to forget it, but to remember the path we took to get here, the lies we didn't inherit, the legacy we didn't pass down, the truth we chose to tell, even when it hurt. Because healing doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means building something better in its place. Lila ran up the stairs that evening, mud on her shoes, and hugged me with all her strength. "Mama," she said, "guess what I want to be when I grow up?" "What?" "Not small." I laughed, hugged her back, and whispered, "Then you're already halfway there." She tried to take everything from me, but I kept what mattered most: my voice, my truth, and my family.